3, 4, 5, 6. I just see about 8. I guess we're included in the 11.
I think so. I don't know.
Oh,
Okay,
it's 2:30. Let's get started.
Yeah, let's do this.
Started. This is Editing Poetry, Perspectives from Editors and Poets, co-hosted by me, Marilyn Wolfe, and Sam Lazar. And we are co-editors of Scrittura, which is a publication on Medium. Editing poetry can be tricky. The editor's job is to make sure the content is appropriate, well-written, and clear. The poet's job is to get their point across in the most distinctive, personal manner they choose. It can be difficult to achieve both goals. To discuss this, we have panelists Erica Burkhalter, E. Bernstein, Emily Jean Pine, and Anne-Marie Steele. Editors want you to succeed as writers. We are not out to get you. So I would like for each of our panelists to introduce yourself a little bit and give us maybe a couple minutes on how you feel about being edited. Sam, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Samantha Lazar, and like Marilyn said, I'm co-editing. They're switching on chat for all sessions for the rest of the day. Well, thank you for that. Cool. Okay, so we can have some chat. So I guess they realized that the Q&A wasn't working so well for people's sessions. Okay, so editing poetry and being edited. So I've been writing on Medium since 2019, and it's the first time, I think, besides college, where I've really worked with people getting that like real-time feedback on poetry specifically. And, you know, it's been a journey for sure. And I think part of what I find really amazing about editing and being edited on Medium is that there's quite a supportive environment. I think in Scrittura especially, I'm not one to really edit for content so much, or even managing people in their expression. I find that to be really tedious, and also kind of don't want to take away an author's voice. I think it's important for us to let people express themselves in the way they see fit. So I generally, when I'm editing poetry, I look for glaring typos or things that would make it seem unpolished. And the formatting is harder to read on Medium, such as double spacing poetry instead of doing single spacing and then reserving double spacing for in between stanzas. That to me is important because of, you know, how it's being consumed by our readers. I also, as an editor, feel like it represents the kind of literary publication we have if we have more polished writing. So I just pay attention to those things. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a good place to start. I'm going to turn it over. Amy, how about you go next?
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Bernstein on Medium. I mainly publish essays and poetry and have been publishing poetry here since about 2021. I was kind of surprised to rediscover. And in outside in the real world, I'm also a novelist and a book coach who helps other authors on their journey to publication. And I teach a lot of craft courses on writing as well. And I'm here on this panel mostly as a poet who is hoping she's not going to be edited. I've really enjoyed on Scrittura and some other sites as well, you know, the opportunity to have my work seen for what it is and not have people second guessing my literary intent. I shared a story with folks here that some months ago when I had a poem included in a chapbook, and kind of a chapbook anthology. The editor wanted me to swap out a phrase because she didn't recognize the idiom, the idiomatic language that I used, and I obliged her and immediately regretted it, because sometimes we have to remember that, you know, we said things a certain way for a very specific reason, and we said what we meant what we said. And then the minute you change that, especially in something as compact as a poem, sometimes you're throwing off your own rhythm. And I was kind of mad at myself for just acquiescing. And I also wanted to, there's a great question already posed about addressing the intimacy that's required between a poet and an editor. And I do think that having been edited as a fiction writer, as a novelist, it definitely is a different kind of relationship, because you're dealing with such subjective use of language, and it's so compact and can be so extraordinarily inventive. We may make up words and punctuation, and I do think there is an intimacy that requires the editor to understand the poet's intent, and the poet to respect the editor's view that something may not be coming across as intended. I think that's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm just gonna let's round robin this. Anne, I'm just gonna toss it over to you.
Okay, so I go by Anne, but it seems like my Facebook and Medium persona is Anne Marie Steele. So Anne Steele, Anne Marie Steele. I've been publishing on Medium for a little over 3 years. So it was the summer of 2020, and I went on and hadn't written anything since I had some poems in high school that I thought were really good. No one had read them. A few in college, didn't do any with them, and maybe wrote a couple when I was in my 30s when I was a stay-at-home mom. A couple of poems. Didn't really start writing until I got on Medium again, and I started by just publishing a couple old pieces. And one of the first ones I did got curated before I'd even started submitting to different publications like Scrittura. So that gave me some motivation and confidence. I'm like, wow, I thought it was good, and now other people do. So started submitting to the Rebel Poets Society at one time, and they I don't know what happened to them, but it seemed like a real crazy exit for the editor's part there. And then really did a lot with Scrittura and a few others, and Central, the Erotic Life. And I actually have another pen name. I'm not going to give it here. Where I submit some of my more raunchy stuff. But anyway, in terms of being edited, I'm usually really, really grateful for the editor. I'm not the type that ever takes offense. And like, I think Amy said this, sometimes I'm almost too nice and I just change something because they say it. And I had the same thing where I regretted not leaving the word as it is. I tend to go crazy with alliteration, and just realized lately that sometimes I'm really good at making things sound really good. But if you look at the meaning, sometimes it's like, wait a minute, that sounds good, but what is she talking about? So lately I've been looking at that with my poetry. Like, I can make it sound good, it doesn't make sense. But I mean, I love being edited, and I never take offense. And usually I'm just a little embarrassed if it's especially a typo or a misspelling. That's the worst, where it's like, there's no explanation for, spelling something wrong. Or so that's about it. I'm really enjoying Medium, and I got a few pieces accepted to the ekphrastic review over this summer. 2 pieces, one on Monet and another on another painting by Fear Eddie, and just submitted some things to Exist Otherwise, some other journal. We're seeing how that will go. So, but I intend to keep writing on Medium. I just love it because I can say whatever I want. So, okay, and that's enough. So Evelyn, did Erica go? Erica or Evelyn?
You can go, Evelyn.
Oh, sorry, I'm like looking at one of you.
Maybe you're frozen.
Oh,
There we go.
Erica's frozen.
I'm muted.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
I'm Evelyn Jean Pine. You can call me Evie. I'm a playwright and librettist.
oh wow.
And
Evelyn, I think you're muted. So let's
I'm
let
still
Erica
muted?
go.
I hear her.
You
hear
do?
you.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess she's just muted for me. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to
Oh.
interrupt.
yeah, sorry. And basically, I come to Medium to mess around. I work mostly as a playwright in a long form. So there's a deep and profound pleasure with just messing around with words and poetry. And I love editors when they catch mistakes and punctuation, just like Anne.
Yeah.
And I also like the editing when it's a conversation. But because even though we have these fantastic publications on Medium, I still see it as a self-publishing platform.
Mhm.
It's like I'm delighted if an editor says, what about this, this, and this? And often people have said that, and that's been useful. But I'm also like Amy and Anne. There are certain things that it's just like, nah, not what I'm doing. And because I'm in, I write plays because I like to play around, and I love to play around with poetry. it's also like, oh yeah, well, part of the reason it's that way is because I'm playing around. I'm interested in structure. I'm interested in words. I rarely begin writing thinking there's a point to it. So it's interesting at times when an editor says, well, I think what you're trying to say is this. And it's like, thank you. Or really? But anyhow, so I'm somebody who, if it's a conversation, I love editing, and I love Medium editors like Marilyn and Samantha, and in some of the other publications who catch the tiny little things that we never catch, or it's easy for us to forget about. What have you got, Erica?
All right, so I'm Erica Burkhalter, and I've been writing on Medium since 2018. Seems crazy it's been that long, but anyways, I had a couple decades of teaching yoga, and yeah, and I have a master's in yoga studies, and I used to teach for Loyola Marymount University classes on like the Upanishads and ancient texts and things like that. I've always just loved writing, and it's always been my dream. Writing and photography are my two creative passions, and I wanted to get more into writing. And then when the pandemic started and the yoga world just sort of fell apart, I decided to just jump full tilt into the creative world. And so here I am, and I have a few poems and some anthologies here and there, but mostly most of my writing is here on Medium. And I just love the community here. For years and years, I was in a writing critique group, and it was so nice to have the feedback and the camaraderie with this group of women, and I really missed that. And I feel like there is an element of that here on Medium. And honestly, I think the best editing for me on Medium comes from when people highlight things that they like in my poems, and when they comment. That something resonated with them that is so meaningful to me. And that is probably the best form of feedback in my mind, and has helped me grow as a poet, probably more than anything, is just being able to see what resonates with people. As poets, that's what we want to do. We want to touch people and reach people, right? And it's amazing. I mean, for a decade, I had 6 women reading my work, and now there's I have quite a few followers on Medium, and it's just kind of amazing. But I really appreciate when editors catch things and find something that just doesn't work, because it's easy to just overlook it. As many times as you go over it, there's always something just doesn't work, and it's nice to get feedback on that.
Okay, I would like to address part of this question from Audrey Howitt. She says, what is your view of the poet making up words? And I hope this makes sense. And it does. I get poets making up words all the time.
I love it.
I usually just leave them a message and say, did you intend to do this? Or is this a misspelling? And if they want it that way, I leave it that way. We also have a lot of international writers that don't use American norms. And if that is unique to their country in their writing, then I leave it that way. But I do ask just to make sure. How about the rest of you?
I love making up words, and I've had editors like not want me to do it. They're like made me put a dash between it, because I remember one of my first poems I submitted from college was I made up the word chocolate glue for like the color, and another one was sky blue, another poem, and I had editors who were just like, and like, I have artistic license, but they were like, no, you need to put a dash, and it's not a word. I'm like, I know it's not a word. I'm not an idiot. I made up the word. So I'm wondering that's a good question. I want to know.
Yeah. I love creative license, poetic license.
Yeah.
I think I speak and make up words all the time. And I say the wrong thing a lot too when I'm speaking, but I think that's my brain. And I think it's some way of being original and creative without like, and using, something familiar in a new way. It's fresh that can bring a different kind of imagery to mind than saying the same old thing. So, as long as it makes sense to the reader and that your point is getting across, I think go for it.
Yeah,
Jabberwocky.
I think that poems, just like plays and fiction, you create a world, right, in a poem. And I think that if invented vocabulary serves the world of the poem and the tone and where the poem seems to be moving in its own story logic, it's terrific. I think where anybody runs into trouble is if we just start putting syllables together because that sort of sounds cool and it doesn't, you're not giving it any meaning. But I think when we do it with meaning, and I love doing it, I turn, nouns into verbs. I turn verbs into gerunds. I mean, whatever. I love doing that. It's a way of sort of economizing and making different word forms have a function and a purpose and kind of giving them muscles. It's wonderful to do that. But as long as I think it's true to the meaning of the poem, and then I say to the editor, leave me alone.
There's a question that says, new to Medium, how does one get access to editors as you are describing? And at the end of this session, I'm going to post a call to action that links directly to the Scrittura publication. And when you go down there, you'll see how to become a writer with us. And I'm also going to address Mark's question. I'm curious about how many poems your publications receive versus how many are published. That is a great question. That's kind of a hard question to answer, just because right now at Scrittura, there's a editorial team of 4 of us, and we each have a day dedicated to publishing, although we publish on a rolling basis and publish every day if we can. And most of the poetry that we get at this point are people who that we have some new writers, a lot of new writers lately, which is great. We hope that continues to happen. But most of the writers so far in Scrittura are kind of established with us. And so there's a lot of trust, I think, between writer and editor. And, we're pretty open to publishing multiple, what someone might call levels of poetry. Poetry is so subjective, and everybody's like opinions about it and the way that it's taken. I think the best feedback is sort of what Erica said, is if people respond to your writing and then think, yeah, I should write more like this for my audience, or should I try to read more poetry and see if I can polish my craft. That is not an answer to your question at all, Mark, but I do think that, there's not really a number. Marilyn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but on Scrittura, it sort of depends on the day. And when we put out prompts, a lot of things, a lot of people like to respond to prompts, and that's really fun to read the different takes on the prompt. And so I think most of what we get so far has been publishable, with an exception of a few that sometimes just need to be, some things need to be ironed out, but it's usually nothing major. So I hope that's clear.
I'd say at least 90%, probably higher. I mean, almost everything gets published with a little negotiation if necessary. So
we always want it to be a conversation. We always want it to be, not a hard no for things. Usually if you're accepted into the publication, it's because we've read your work. We ask that our new writers send us examples of things they've written, and so we can see, if you're just trying to hop from publication to publication, or if you're, you want to develop your craft and work with us. We're pretty open to pretty much anyone who enjoys it. We also publish fiction and nonfiction as well, but mostly poetry, I would say.
Did we answer? Audrey posted another question. How do you deal with the poet's intent? I think we've already addressed that one. Are you comfortable with that being an answer, Audrey? Mary Holden wants to know, My goal at midlife was to live the life of a poet.
Oh, I just saw this.
Participation in events like this would help me a lot toward that goal. I would love to hear how from each of you, what you think living the poet's life means to you. Living the poet's life to me means making myself find time to write, if nothing else. And when people ask me, what do? I tell them I'm retired and I'm a writer. So it's mostly making myself find time to write. There's a lot of competition, but if you're a writer, you write. So that's what it is to me.
Yeah. That's what I feel too, because I am a teacher and I'm off for the summer, or I went back to school 2 weeks ago, but real early. So I had a little time over the summer, and now I regret I didn't use it better. But there's so many other things I do too, that to set aside even a few hours a week to me is a lot. So no one can really make a living off of writing for the most part. So just finding time. I agree.
Yeah, for me, I think I agree with Marilyn and Anne, writing a lot. I also think it's really important, if you're a poet, to live deeply and to have fabulous experiences. You want to write a lot, but you want to make sure you also have a lot of time for sex. That's the poet's life, let's face it. But also living deeply, being connected to communities. I saw a great panel that Fourth Wave did this morning with, writers from around the world. And I just thought, I got to get out more, so that's what I would say for the poet's life.
I'd love to tag on to what you all have said, because I write in many, many different forms and genres. Not only do I write across genres in fiction, but also essays. I'm also a former journalist and a former speechwriter and a playwright. So I've written in many, many different forms. And I think poetry is the medium when words are close to failing you for describing any other experience or set of feelings. So for me, that notion of what it means to sort of be a poet or write poetry, it's a very specific habit of mind that for me is I think differently when I need to write a poem than when I'm writing in any other genre, and I've written in like all of them. Yeah. And so it's a really specific kind of thing. And I think it's always worth asking ourselves, does this really need to be a poem? Or can it be something else? Because in my mind, if it could be something else, don't write a poem. Write an essay, write a play, write a short story, write a letter to the editor. But if it just absolutely has to be a poem because you're so close to not being able to express it, so close. Poetry is sort of the language that I think gets you there, and that's how I think about it.
For me, I'm a mountain biker, and I spend a lot of time outside, and a lot of my best work comes from being out in nature. And I have come to use the little voice recorder on my phone a lot when I'm out on the bike. I'll stop and I'll get a line, and I'll record it and write a little further, and get another line, and it just sort of comes in that way. But for me, the poetry, it's mostly inspired by being out in nature, I guess. And traveling. I love to travel and seeing the world and just having new experiences. That's what inspires me.
I would say also, so I write every day. It's a ritual for me. I write almost all day long in my head. Wow. So to live a poet's life for me is a little bit of a form of insanity, I think, but in hopefully a productive, creative, inspiring way. And it's about the sensory experience of being alive, I think. And this morning, I don't know if any of you who are on here were at Jamie Millard and Nicole Rank's session. They did a meditation this morning, and Jamie said that poetry was a portal to presence. And I just loved that. Portals to presence. It's like, you can just be present if you are finding language to express what you're feeling or seeing or in the moment. And whether you're outside or you're in some industrial basement, I guess there's poetry in everything if you choose to see it that way. And it doesn't have to come out as a piece of poetry that you want to publish, but just kind of noticing, I guess, would be my advice. We have some more questions.
Yeah.
Let's see. What are your individual feelings or perspectives on poetry contests? I have a love-hate relationship with poetry contests. I mean, I think I'll just keep talking. I have entered many of them. For sure. I've not been necessarily a judge of them, except for the poetry competitions I put on at my school as a teacher, and which has been really difficult to do. But we have in April, a poetry celebration, and this is little kids through 8th graders, and so choosing poet laureates for each individual grade level or just age level, I guess. Was really a fun experience. I guess it's been a fun experience to do that and bring writing alive. So I think they can, be an impetus for someone to try to create something and just see what happens. But I think it is tricky because I just entered one recently, Sixfold. If you're familiar with Sixfold, it's all writer judged, and hundreds of people enter, and then you go through different rounds, and you yourself, if you enter the contest, you have to judge other people's as well. And you don't judge your own, of course, but you get these different rounds of 6 different pieces, and you rank them, and then I don't know, I think there were like 500 people that came in the center somewhere, in the first round, which was great. But I don't know how I feel about them. Yes, Marilyn.
We have 3 minutes left.
Oh,
okay. I'm going to put my call to action up just so it's there for people who are going to hop off, but you all keep talking.
Does anybody have any closing thoughts that you would like to leave with our viewers?
I encourage anyone who hasn't been writing poetry and wants to write poetry to sit down and start writing poetry. I mean, really. You don't need permission. Just go for it.
Did you guys see the banner pop up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
You can click it and then bookmark it for later. But that's our publication. And scrolling down, you'll see how to join us and be part of the team.
And it's a lovely publication. Thank you, ladies, for everything you do. You publish some very high quality poetry.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, thank you, everyone for coming. So I'm seeing a lot of names of people I've been following and and who read me too. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to see some of these people on here. I wish we could actually see your faces, but
yeah,
we could if everybody wanted to see. They show up on moderation, but that would take a while. Then everybody would pop up and leave. Yeah. If anyone wants to stick around just for like a couple minutes, I don't know if they close it out.
Samantha, the call to action link might not have worked. Alicia's saying, and the one that you put up in the other session didn't work, so I don't know whether.
Okay, it's me, not you. Okay, hold on a second. I'm putting this on here, and then banner title is.
Well, my question for the editors too is like, once you start submitting primarily to one publication, I always feel kind of weird about submitting to another one. Like I'm cheating on one publication. So that's my question.
I don't think so.
It's not working. I'm going to put it in the chat.
I think it's a really nice idea to publish on multiple publications.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean you're not cheating.
Yeah,
I'm in lots and lots of different ones, and I own 2 publications as well. So
you do?
Yeah, I do. They're on hiatus for the summer because I'm also a teacher. But yeah, I'll talk to you off this for that. Yeah. I put the link in the chat. I hope that showed up for everybody and that it works. I don't know why the call to action's not, but when I click on the one in the chat, it will. Okay.
Okay, we are very near to being over. I want to thank everybody for coming. You're welcome to, ask any of us anything on medium.com. You can search on our names as they show up here, or the title Scrittura.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's about it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So I think we're over. Is everybody happy with what went on?
Yeah, but I think people are still here.
Oh,
Yes, they are.
I'm replying to people. I'm trying to put the link in the chat.
question.
Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you,
Here,
Pablo.
Donald. Donald, here you go.
Thank you, Gary Chapin was here.
Alicia, I think I put the link in there for you.
Pablo.
Yeah, it's just Scrittura.
Lori, you wanted to.
Lori has a good question, but
Are you still here, Lori? I guess you are. It may have layers and layers. How much time do we spend with it?
Oh,
It depends on the poem. I would say for the most part, again, if we can understand it, we sort of let it go with whatever they want to put on it. So it's important to us. I write with the Howling Owl as well as Scrittura, and it's important with both those publications that the writer has as much freedom as possible to say what they need to say. We may have some broad parameters, but for the most part, we want the writers to be who they are and be comfortable in the space.
Mhm.
all right, I'm gonna hop off and go to another session, and then I'll see y'all
Bye.
on the interwebs. Love ya.
All right. I'll
Thank
see you in
you
half an
so
hour,
much.
Samantha.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Nice to meet everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.